I'd like to bring this meeting to order. This is the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, and it's Friday, July the 28th. And let's do roll call. Brian Hancock.
Yep.
Craig Deere.
Here. Jimmy Horty's here.
Steve Curson.
Here.
Honey Fisher. Patricia Davis.
Here.
Howard Menaker. And I could say something smart right now, but I won't. And the chairman, Jay Legree's here. So let's approve the minutes for the 19 May 2023 meeting. Do I hear, has everybody had a chance to read the minutes, and are you ready to either approve or disapprove them?
I'll move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes have been approved, and I received no correspondence this period concerning topics that we're going to be discussing today. And we have Public Works Director Kevin Williams and Rehoboth Beach Police Director Chief Keith Banks. And Chief Banks, would you go first and give us an update on what's been going on and your opinions of this summer?
Well, good morning. It's definitely my pleasure to have the opportunity to address this panel. Okay, again, good morning, Commissioner Legree, committee members, and general public that may be out there listening this morning. Thank you for the opportunity to address this body and present the midsummer update. I'm going to start off with the Rehoboth Beach Patrol, because they're the first most people that are out there and that we're recognized for our beautiful beaches. And this report is going to reflect as of July 24th. We're fully staffed with 70, which includes 8 EMTs, headquarters staff, and 1 Rehoboth Beach Patrol ambassador, and we'll talk a little bit about that next. We did welcome in our new ambassador, Skip First, on July 1st. He has done a great job communicating with the public and explaining the beach ordinances. His main job is just to go up and down the beach and sort of talk about if you see smoking, where you can smoke legally. If you have tents, they have to come down. But he has such a great personality demeanor where he's just calming people down. He's not being, in their face and all that. Let's work together, and it gives them information about what they can and cannot do. And this also includes animal issues and things like that. We have over 190 kids signed up for the junior lifeguard program that began June 21st. And that's about average. We have to turn kids away because it is so many people like to do this. And maybe it's for the whole summer. Sometimes it's just a week long or a couple weeks that the family's down on vacation. So they sign up for that. And I think it's important to recognize so many of the lifeguards actually volunteer for this program. It's 3 days a week. It's from 8 a.m. to 9. And they actually come in an hour early before they start their own workouts and actually train and assist. Some are getting paid, but a vast majority are donating their time to come in and help. I think that's important to put out. We had 19 rookies this year. 18 made it through the rookie training process and completed the rookie test. The Rookie of the Year was Sante Ludwig, and if you haven't had the opportunity to meet him, this young man's impressive, not just because of his talents in the ocean, but just his personality. So I encourage each of you to go, when you're out and about on the boardwalk, to stop down to Beach Patrol and congratulate him and ask about him. Each year after the rookie test and all, there is a get-together to celebrate their accomplishments, and that was this year held at Camp Rehoboth, so we appreciate them opening up their doors for us. July 12th, the United States Lifesaving Mid-Atlantic Lifeguard Championships were hosted here. Over 300 competitors from New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and Delaware. Rehoboth Beach finished second place overall out of 18 teams, so what an accomplishment. And because of that, over 20 of our own lifeguards The competitors have qualified for the Nationals being held in Virginia Beach in August. That's not to say we'll send everyone, but they have qualified to sit there and go to the Nationals with our competition. So that's something to be really proud of. And last evening, if anybody was out and about on the Boardwalk, we hosted the Rehoboth Beach Lifeguards Olympics, which encompassed 11 local teams up and down. So I haven't got the final results this morning where we finished at, but I'm sure we did quite well. The bell ringing ceremony continues every weekend. Senator Coons was actually down a couple weeks ago on the 16th, where he rang the bell, whatever, and said a few words to our guards. And we continue to have the local business person, successful alumni, and other great supporters of the Beach Patrol that come in and ring the bell on the weekends. And we do the flag ceremony and all that if you've ever come down there. So again, it's just trying to bring back tradition. We've had, unfortunately, 4 documented injuries of lifeguards this summer season so far. But there have been minor back strains, foot, ankle injuries, but they're all back to work, so they weren't lasting effects. After a slow June, July has been exceptionally busy in all categories. We've had 52 water saves to date. Now, in all of 2022, there was 94. We had 44 assists. In 2022, there was 59, so we're on par for that. We had 159 missing or lost children. So I think that's going to trend up this year because last year total we had 318. Again, successfully, everyone's been reunited. Usually it's the parents that are missing. The kids know where they're at. We had 130 wheelchair requests that's been out. Last year we had a total of 277, so I think, again, getting through the rest of July and August, I think it's going to stay about average. We've had 998 tent and canopy takedowns. In 2022, we had 3,141. Now, that's not to say there's less tents, because I'll talk about that on my side a little bit later. But again, the ambassador came on July 1st. And again, this is one person walking down the entire boardwalk. I'll mention it again later, but I'll say it again now. Now, remember, most of the lifeguards, their job is to look out the ocean and see what's going on, even though there's 2 to a stand. They've got a system in place. And when it comes to my officers, their main job is on the boardwalk, Rehoboth Avenue, and some other areas, and they go down to assist the beach patrol when they ask somebody to do something they're not following the rules. Or if Public Works or somebody calls us to come down to assist. So there's many reasons why, but we'll talk about the canopies a little bit later because it is trending upward, quite honestly. We've had 254 EMT responses. In 2022, the entire time we had 121. So why have we had higher numbers? Quite honestly, when I talk to the captains, because better documentation. This year, we're giving ourselves credit on things that we're doing. Somebody's coming in needing Band-Aids or jellyfish stings. We're actually recording that in our books that we've actually took them in and we did something for them versus just saying, okay, here you go and push them out, get them out the door, but we're not necessarily giving ourselves credit for the time and what we're actually doing for them. Now, out of that 254 EMT responses, 17 were major incidents and the remainder was 237 minor incidents. The 911 Communication Center from Memorial Day to the Midsummer Point, again, using the 24th, July 24th as a reference point. The dispatch center has processed a total of 3,020 complaints and received 2,808 911 calls. Quite honestly, this is an overall decrease in total number of complaints from 2022. However, so far this summer, the Communication Center has seen increases in both EMS calls and the total of 911 calls. So in other words, we're just not getting to walk-ups for minor things, found property and things like that. Those complaints are down, but we're seeing a rise on true 911 calls for emergency. I can go over the stats if you need to. I got the 911 disconnects, they're down. Vehicle stops are down for the police department. Many reasons for that. Staffing levels, when we get to the police department, we're down this year on staffing levels, and because of that, we're not being as proactive. We're usually being reactive, quite honestly, and it's not a trend I like to happen, but that's the reality of it when we have staffing shortages. And also, then they're not doing the proactive things. As I said, EMS incidents are up. Fire incidents are trending about the same. But again, that's another category. Our local fire department is really pushing the limits with their jurisdictional boundaries. They're really working hard and getting calls every day, multiple calls, and getting assistance from other departments surrounding towns because of the complexity of the complaints we're seeing for their ambulance and fire. I would like to point out, it's not really about the Beach and Boardwalk Committee, I understand that, but when I was looking at some numbers last night, I just wanted to bring along that during this time period, the Communication Center underwent a major version change of the call-taking software this year, upgrading it from EMD version 14.0 and EPD version 7. The Communication Center sent several employees to advanced training. This summer, unfortunately, most places are slower in the summertime, so that's when they host a training. So we have to send hours, too, to make sure we get them credentials to supervisory leadership courses. So we've been doing that through this summer, and all of which, and city commissioners are working on this at staffing levels. We haven't had a communications supervisor in there for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. I've been kind of overseeing that department and all accreditations and things. And our staffing level, we have 8, and we have 12 positions total that were available. So we're 4 dispatchers down again and the supervisor. So they're doing a lot of work, and a lot of things are getting done during the summer season. I'm just kind of pointing a picture of what's going on and where we're being more reactive than proactive. Moving forward with the rest of the summer season, the Communication Center is focusing on the recruitment and retention of staff, continuing to update and add policies into Lexipol system, and streamline their remapping the CAD complaint types to be more efficient. Bandstand events, that may be important to you guys. They continue to be popular. All you have to do is walk down on a Friday, Saturday night, and you're going to see how busy they are. But we are receiving many complaints. Corey is receiving complaints, City Hall's complaint, the same complaint in the police department. People are wanting to reserve the seats. They're putting their towels down and leaving, going out to dinner and coming back. And many people are complaining, especially persons that may be handicapped and elderly are certainly complaining about it. There's really no regulations for that. And the problem we're running into, we start moving towels, we start moving little bags that may have, we don't know what inside. Okay, is it just left properly, or do you start taking it in? Where are we going to store that? Because you know they're coming back, and Corey is trying to get ready for that night's production, that event. So that's coming very problematic, but I will point out to this committee, we are receiving those complaints all the time. And if you're going to take someone's property, you better document and hold on to it, and there's a lot of it up there. So it almost comes that you almost have to just leave it there, and they're going to come back. I guess the flip side to that is at least the events are being well attended and people are wanting to come back and reserve their space, but that's not being as friendly as we could be down here. Another issue we have that's been brought up from the Streets and Transportation Committee, and we'll bring to attention of the Beach and Boardwalk again because of the bandstand is a very big part of this. The safety concerns. Vehicles want to leave during the performances. I'm working with the city manager, Corey. What can we do to entice people or let them know they should stay inside the roundabout while the event's going on? So many times people say, well, I didn't know the event was going on tonight, and they are backing out or going around while people are standing in the middle of the roadway. You got baby strollers, you got people in wheelchairs, etc. And you can't hold them hostage, and especially if their meters are still having to be paid and things. So we're trying to see if we can put signboards or something else up there to let people know that, hey, there's a bandstand event tonight. If you're parked here after 7 p.m., you're going to have to stay here till the event ends around 9:30, possibly. Again, I don't know if we have any legal right to sit there and do that, but at least it's putting people on notice because my staff is constantly ask people to move or whether the people's backing out because they're impatient, they're coming out one way or the other, so you might as well assist them and trying to then we move our patrol car and have them back out that way. Hey, and of course, they may get a few comments made from the people that are trying to watch the concert. So that is something we're seeing more and more. It's always happened, but people are being more and more impatient. That's just where we're at in today's society, unfortunately. So those are things we're seeing at the bandstand event. But again, Corey's doing a great job, great entertainment up there, and positive feedback. Rehoboth Beach Police Department, Unfortunately, as I sort of mentioned about the staff in the police department did not meet our hiring goal this year. We're allotted 26 cadets and we hired 13. Through the use of grant funding, we are able to staff the officers at the bandstand events as well as the farmers market, but it makes it difficult. These guys and gals are working a lot of hours, and we certainly appreciate all the extra time that they're doing here. Biggest thing with that, and I spoke about it last year, at the end of the year, is truly housing. And it just costs so much money up front if you can even find housing, because people won't rent seasonal, they want weekly or yearly. And until we decide we can address that, and the city is working on that. I don't want to sit there and say they're not. They're really looking at that. But it's again, I won't put doom and gloom, but I've mentioned it here before in other places. And now we're 2 years since I've been saying it. I truly believe in 5 to 6 years, the cadet program will be gone if we can't find something with housing, because it's so expensive. Insurances, and families are paying. Most of these are college kids, so they got college tuition to sit there and pay for too, just to come down. So a lot of them are not breaking even. They're losing money to be here, but they know how important it is to be on a resume and all. So, and we're getting it, but it's getting harder. It's not just us. It's Virginia, it's New Jersey, it's Ocean City, Maryland, it's our beach resorts, Bethany, Dewey Beach, and unfortunately, it's not just putting money out there that we're looking at the increased hourly. It's really just trying to find housing for them. It is one of the biggest issues. It all goes together. So then, the next thing I'd like to talk about is just trends. It's not the entire picture until the end of the season. So it's just part of the season, what's going on so far with in the Rehoboth Beach Police Department, what we're seeing. We are seeing a rise in homeless population. The officers are working really hard to identify these individuals and see if and how we may be able to assist them. I think it's important because people are down here with maybe they're just down on their luck, maybe it's mental health, many different things go into it. We work hard to try to identify these individuals by getting some names, contact information, because a lot of times they want to be left alone and they do want to be out. That's just where it is, because we've been able to get them cleaned up and get some food for them, and then they come back here. So if we can sit down and try to find a contact person, at least we can keep their family aware of what's going on with them, if possible. And many of them that's homeless are actually working here in town at our local businesses and all that, but we'll find tents popped up in the parks or off the beach dunes and stuff that you guys are regulating with the Beach and Boardwalk Committee. So we are seeing that. We're also seeing, unfortunately, a spike in opioid-related overdoses in town here. That's the national trend. Unfortunately, it's not. We're not immune to the things that come in town. Now, again, our spikes are different. We haven't seen it for a long time, so any increase starts rising up. So again, I'm not doom and gloom. It's just something that we're seeing that's going on here in Rehoboth Beach area. But with that, so what can we do about that? Maybe many of you read this in the paper, and I know the mayor commissioners got information on it. On July 10th, Corporal Bixler trained approximately 25 restaurant employees and boarded 9 new restaurants to the Delaware Department of Health's Bronze Fork Award Program. The state had only been able to onboard 1 restaurant in Sussex County in the few years that started this program. We received positive feedback from many of the attendees that came here, and one attendee was there to vet the program and entertain a private training for their restaurant association. So what we're seeing is a trend of a lot of people working in restaurant businesses ODing. So we want to give them training. We want to sit there and give them the tools to sit there and help save a life or whatever to that. So that's just one way we're trying to go back. It was very successful. Like I said, we're on board the state. The state was very impressed that we're doing this and reaching out. I can say that it's already been successful. Right before the training, we had trained another group, and they had had a person collapse in one of the local restaurants, and they were able to save their life with the Narcan and things that we had given them, the kits and things. So I think that's, again, we turn things negative into a positive, continue to work with our community. This one person that was vetting us, again, it's a restaurant chain that has many, many restaurants in the local area, and they're going to, it looks like, have us do a private training for all their workers and things. And I know we're not the only ones doing that. Camp Rehoboth and other ones do that around, but we're going to try to continue that program as well as others. Beginning of each summer season, we assist the Delaware Department of Transportation with International Student Outreach, their bicycle safety program. They, as many of you, or hope you guys know, DelDOT actually offer free bicycles, free repairs, helmets, locks, and lights for foreign students. And before they can register and get a bicycle, they have to go through a bike safety course where we go out there and help participate with it. And because of legal insurances, we can't necessarily go out on a roadway and do true safety courses and all that, but we can just do some mock-up things in the on their driveways and things like that, and make sure they're proficient at riding a bicycle and understand our laws, and not just the rules outside of town, but in town, not riding on the sidewalk and things like that. And because of that, we were able to get bicycle lights, and we've actually installed over 150 bike lights this year. And again, when we give out the bike lights, we see any person in town riding at night without a light. Instead of giving a citation, what we'll do is pull them over. If they don't have a bike light, we'll go ahead and give them one. But we're not just going to hand it to them. We actually install it for them. So it's there right then and there. So that program's been good. And again, that's with the help of Department of Transportation that's been supplying those bike lights to us free of charge. And also publicly thank them too for their work on that. So why do I mention that? 'Cause I think that's a good program that we assist with each summer and continue throughout the summer. But there has been an increased number of bike thefts here recently. Last 3 weeks, it's going off the charts. There were 2 a night at times. A lot of these bicycles are left unsecured in our bike racks or in the local front yards and things. It's not all of them. Many of them, some of them are secured or when people are cutting the bike locks. But we are seeing that. And we're getting a lot of them back. They're just for a joyride, I guess, on the bicycle because they're left 2-3 blocks later or down the road. Now, many we don't get back, but again, we get quite a bit of them returned to the owner the next day or so. And just last night, my summer officer took a report the night before of a stolen bicycle. Remember that information, saw a person riding it, and was able to get the bicycle back last night. And also, we try to get as much information from the individuals that when their bicycles are stolen. And people actually do a great job, take photographs of their bicycles, got serial numbers and all that, so it helps us to identify their product and get that back to them. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but the use of tents and canopies and dogs on the beach, quite honestly, are becoming problematic. The city regulations are posted at each entrance. We have recently posted additional signage marking the line between the city limits and the state limits. And we were hoping that would actually help more people come in and say, okay, I need to get my dog, quit walking to let my dog run loose on the beach or whatever and come off the Boardwalk beach area or turn back around, like in a Forgotten Mile, or headed back to Dewey Beach. That hasn't been the case. They just continue right on, even though we've put new signage out. Let's see. Tents, our beach ambassador, as I mentioned, and the police officers constantly ask individuals to take tents down. Quite honestly, this year, the argumentative people that have come back to us, just quite honestly being rude, just arguing with the lifeguards. The lifeguards are calling us to come down. Ambassador does a great job. He's not going to get in that argument. He just walks away and gives us a description and go back down. But something I haven't seen, I'm sure it's always happened, but it just seems more vagrant, is that more just out there and open this year. They'll actually take the tent down and we leave and they'll put it right back up. Usually that is just down and they'll just be argumentative with us or just get mad and leave. But now they're actually just putting it right back up. Again, maybe it's always happened, but now it's just more in our face because they don't hardly let you get out of sight before you're back. And again, I mentioned earlier, the police officers being short-staffed, we really have other complaints where we're going to. So it's the lifeguards, and their main job is to focus on the ocean. So that means we have one person go all the way down to Deauville, all the way down to Prospect. And you know how that is. People see the trend, where you're at, where you're not at, and it's hard to get back to that. So I think overall we do a nice job, but it would be unfair to not report that we're receiving a lot of emails. City Hall does, I do, Communications Department receives those emails weekly about more enforcement, more enforcement, more enforcement. So we are working on that. We're cognizant of that, but that is the things we're seeing. Disruptive teens. If you've read any newspaper articles or seen anything recently on social media, that's been happening all over in New Jersey and Maryland. Even Bethany Beach and Dewey Beach has enacted teen curfews. So what are we seeing? We're observing and receiving complaints about groups of teenagers, even some younger, disrupting businesses in town. They come to play. These businesses are reporting that they come into the store just to play around and play with the merchandise, and quite honestly, each other, just running up and down the aisles and picking this up, balls or whatever, and throwing them around and things like that. This summer, the officers have noticed increase of young kids hanging together, 4 to 8 people at a time. Now, again, this isn't new. We're at the beach. Kids are going to be kids, and they are going to come down and hang out. What we're seeing different trends is they're grouping up 4 to 8 people at a time or whatever. Maybe they're throwing a ball or something like that, but being loud. Quite honestly, they're just being rude. I don't know how else to say it. They're just, a lot of them are just being rude out there. And many, go ahead. I thought somebody said something, sorry. Many of the individuals that we're seeing, they're 12 to 14 years of age, but no adult around. And for example, last week we had some individuals on top of a rooftop taking pool furniture and throwing it down on cars at the bottom or whatever, on the ground, and damaging vehicles. They were so concerned about it, then they trespassed somewhere else and got in the hot tub or whatever to relax. And parents had no idea they were even in the area while they were in Rehoboth Beach. And this is, these are 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and 12-year-olds. And that's where the change is seen, is the 12, 13-year-olds, 14, instead of the 14, 15-year-olds. And also that's where we're seeing a lot more of the trend and receiving complaints of our business owners about that. And as I mentioned, South Bethany, and Dewey Beach have all enacted teen curfews. Again, I'm not saying we should do that or look at it. I'm just making this body aware of the things that we're seeing out there, some of the trends. We continue to receive complaints on electric bicycles, and quite honestly, the enforcement regulating them continue to be an issue. I know Streets and Transportation Committee is talking about doing classifications for them. It's about the speed, but if they're not engaging, be a class 1, or I think it's class 1, and that would be okay. But the problem is people go by and then they want to engage it. Some of them have throttles for like a class 2 and start going way too fast, and we receive complaints all the time from that. And I know the kiosks, Delaware, they receive those same complaints. Again, short staffing is one issue, but the next thing of it is you can't. A foot officer's not going to chase a bicycle that's got its engaged going down the boardwalk. Again, it just goes to courtesy and common sense, and a lot of people don't always focus on that. And we continue to stay busy with extra duty jobs and events that take place weekly. Many of these events takes weeks and months to plan, like our 4th of July, the Sea Witch Festival, and other dignitaries that come and go through town. So we're staying quite busy, but again, I don't want to hit doom and gloom or whatever. I truly don't, because every night many nights I try to get out and just walk, especially on the weekend and throughout the week, being a city manager. The positive feedback we get from our community. I mean, the beach looks outstanding, and with how clean it is. We get comments all the time. Oh my God, after a bandstand event and at night or where there might be some trash around, and then by the next, in a few hours, it's all cleaned up. So we got a lot of positive things going on. Some of the things, is from a police officer standpoint, where we kind of look at things a different side, a little jaded or whatever, and maybe put more of the spin on the negative, where we have so many positive things going on here in Rehoboth Beach. So I don't want to give you a full picture, but at the same time, I don't want to say that it's not good, because if you go downtown, there's people, our visitors are here, they're happy to be here, people have a smile on their face, they're very welcoming. I mean, people are saying hello, good evening, good morning, and all that out there. So we got a lot to be proud of, and hopefully I wasn't too long-winded. I think my counterpart said yes, but let me know if do you have any questions or something you are interested in me talking about. When you said midsummer update, I wasn't sure exactly what direction you wanted to go, so I kind of just threw everything in.
Chief, could
Yes.
you just touch on how much, if any, additional resources you're required to provide when the president visits Rehoboth? And if so, overtime especially, is the city reimbursed for any of that?
It is. I can't talk about too much what we do with under presidential movements and what incurs when it goes there. I can sit there and say that through funding, grant funding, we do get reimbursed. And that comes out, so there's paperwork obviously attached with that, and then when monies get freed up and all. So the city will get it reimbursed. It's like anything else with the federal government, may not be as timely, but we do receive it, and it comes in on a regular basis. So we do get covered with that. There are certain things in town that we are obligated to, or they would like us to sit there and handle when the president's in here. And I would just say, without going too much detail, it makes sense if you look at it, because we're the ones, I guess, so-called experts on movements. If somebody somewhere, we know what events are going on in town, so we will know what the fastest route may be or not be, or where something may be blocked, where somebody from out of state may not know those areas. So it is important for us to be involved in that, and we try to assist them wherever they ask us. If we're fine if they want the state or DENRAC or anybody else to help out. So we never push, but we're always there. But yet we won't turn them down if there's any request. But yes, to answer your question, we do participate and we do get reimbursed. And it's a good working relationship. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Chief, I just wanted to add a comment to yours. You're right. Sometimes you hear these trends and it seems a little distressing. But the men and women on your force are remarkable. And they're courteous, and they're upbeat, and they're remarkably calm in the face of the fact that, as I heard you say, and I've seen it myself, people can be really abusive. People can be really obnoxious. And your officers are just trying to do their jobs. So please take, from all of us, thanks and commendation, especially given the fact that you're understaffed. It's pretty amazing what a great job they do. So thank you.
No, thank you. It's very kind. I definitely will pass that on. And a little tidbit to that is we only had 2 returnees. So out of the 13, 11 are brand new. So and they're doing a great job. And I was really concerned about that at the beginning, and they really stepped up. And I guess if there is a positive thing, even though we're getting lack of applications, we're seeing more diversity. So that's a wonderful thing. No, thank you. Anything else?
If we cut off the pedestrian zone and just made that no driving or parking up around the horseshoe, how many more seats could Corey put out? Would it help anything, or what? I just read the letter of the editor of today's paper. What is there any kind of a solution other than being nasty, or?
I think that's not so easy to answer right now. First of all, Corey, we have to talk about as far as seating and public works and what we really want that to look like. So I think that's a bigger picture if you start adding benches and things. But you get into Jolly Trolley, into the bandstand event starts, goes to the Boardwalk, the DART bus up front. So if you started closing that down, both will be there. Plus you had a delivery vehicle. So the next thing you know, you're going to pinch down to 1 lane where there's 2 lanes there now. Because remember, Jolly Trolley as well as DART needs to get to the curb for people to get off and unload instead of pulling out in the streetway. And that's why we're constantly moving vehicle traffic up for unloading, or just using the restrooms, but maybe they'll run in to use one of the restaurants. And then it's taken away from the restaurants. Again, learned behavior, but many of them are used to not only the foot traffic, but the 30-minute turnaround in that area too, to go up and get a slice of pizza or to get popcorn or candy and things. So I think it's a bigger picture. I'm not trying to dodge it, but the whole topic in that downtown area and what the future could look like is a big topic that many people would want to weigh in on, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's discussion coming when we start planning for streetscape. And
Yeah.
do you have any kind of a number? I mean, if we gave every cadet, say, $4,000 a year as a housing allowance that they get on the last day they work, or half in here and half there, would that help you at all?
I think it helps, but again, it's really just locating the housing. Many people don't want to rent to somebody that's 18, 19, 20, 21 years of age. So the parents are already doing that, but yet the parents will not be there with them. So therefore, that gets looked at. And there's so much more money to be made locally. So we're pushing them out to Millsboro, to Milford. And then they are fighting the traffic to get into work. These young adults, and it's not just the city or whatever, it's people that's working in the city too, other businesses, they're in the same predicament. So I don't want to act like it's just us. But, who wants a job that you're leaving an hour early for work to get there? And then when you leave or whatever, fight the same traffic to get out. So a lot of those get to us. We had the same issue as other businesses that schools start up so much earlier. Same thing with our lifeguards. We're anywhere from August 8th to the 20th, you're just going to see mass exit or whatever, and to leave. But back to the money, it helps because they are when they do secure a place, most of them want it in full up front. And like I said, they got college tuition that's still going on even during the summer months while they're on break. Or if they're just graduating, they got other things, or moving out into the real world, whatever's going on in their personal lives, and they're having to sit there and then come up with extra $3,000, $4,000, $6,000 for the summer season. And the one thing we saw a lot last year, which was almost amazing to me, is when we had asked them to stay on for weekends. Some of them said yes, they could, but not the entire month. And they were going to places they had rented, and they were told no. So you can pay for the whole month if you want to stay. Otherwise, just that one weekend, they're not doing it. So then we lost out the rest of the weekend. I get it as a business. I'm not faulting a person that has property and that's trying to encompass money, but that's where we're at. But I will say again, publicly, the mayor and commissioners and city manager are working hard about that for all departments, all housing. I'm sure Kevin will talk about it too with Public Works and all that, had incentives, and we're trying to look at maybe some things for incentives for if we find people, good people, and they're hired and they stay on, that we give the employee a bonus or something like that. All things we can sit there and talk about, because a lot of places, especially in law enforcement, is giving these sign-in bonuses, and I've never been a big fan of that. I don't mind helping out with housing and things like that, but I want to support our individuals that's been dedicated to my department, to the city of Rehoboth Beach and its citizens, and trying to recruit good people to come in and like-minded souls versus just throw money at it, because a lot of times those individuals may not want to stay anyway. They're just going for the quick fix. Not in all cases, but I like to reward the ones that are here and trying to do the right thing. So hopefully I answered your question.
I think the trend that we're seeing, like industry-wide, and I know that there's been several articles in the Cape Gazette, and I know Delaware Online and a lot of various other, beach towns. And I know that friends of mine who own a lot of restaurants down here, what they're actually doing as a part of their strategic planning for the future is actually the company or the municipality is going out and buying, a home for, their employees, whether it's in the restaurant or the city or whatever, so they have a place to live and they just adjust, their, salary during the time that they're working there. I think that's a trend of the times, and I think that's something that every business and every municipality is going to have to do, because, as the price of real estate just keeps going up, you can't fault anybody for, charging what the market rate is.
Right. So, again, I don't want to be negative here, because we got a lot of positive things going on. A lot of bright people are working on these issues. They're aware of it, and so I think we will come up with a solution. Like a lot of things, it takes time. But again, you want to cheer up, get out there on the boardwalk, walk downtown or whatever, and there's a lot of positive things going on in our town.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Kevin Williams is our Public Works Director. We'll have a couple of things.
Thanks, Commissioner, and thanks,
And
everybody.
question.
Yeah, as Chief kind of started with, it's been kind of a weird summer, right? We started in May with a beach replenishment, so not sure yet all the impacts to that. If you just look at trash, it'll tell you one thing, but if you look at just a gut feel on number of visitors, it'll tell you something else. So I'm not sure we ever know, right? It's rainy on the weekend, sunny in the week. It just changes each year. Starting with the beach replenishment, fortunately this year we were first. So we really got most of our beach done before we hit Memorial Day, unlike some of our southern neighbors. So very happy that happened. We ended up putting on about 300,000 cubic yards of sand onto the beach. And if you compare, the width and the depth of the beach from last year, it's just a whole different beach. They also rebuilt a couple of the crossing sites, Maryland, which had been probably our most accessible ramp with the railings and the mats and everything down. It had always been configured, I guess in the last 6 years, it had always been configured heading north. The only one on the beach. So that got reconfigured now, and it goes south like the rest of them. We all think that, the typical winds we see, they're better oriented to the south than they are to the north. So now they're all that way. Of course, now we've had to order a new mat for that one because now it also has a different configuration, different length. So that's been ordered. Hopefully that'll get here quickly, and we can get that out in time for at least a little bit of use this season. Although not within the contract footprint, DENREC had them also raise the what was an ADA, what we would call an ADA ramp at Laurel, because over the years it had filled in and now it was just unusable. So they actually leveled and put the compacting sand in there. So we're getting mats out there now in order to kind of make that at least usable, more usable. In the past, last 2 years, it had not been usable at all. The mats caused us a lot of issues up front, because we put mats down, then we have to pull the mats up while they rebuild the crossings and put the mats down. So just a lot of effort, but I think by the time they finished, around Memorial Day, we were able to get them, all the ones that we have, back down and usable, which was, they're always very much appreciated everywhere we have them. And we also this year tried some new configurations with the mats down on the beach. So I think in years past, down at Laurel and at Maryland, we would typically put a long mat out on the beach parallel to the ocean so folks would get out there and sit and watch the beach. This year, we had some feedback that said, hey, we'd like more smaller ones, but more of them. So we went down south where we had kind of some level beach to use. We went to more of a configuration where you come down off the ramp and then teed it out. So guys could go out on either wing and be able to sit out there. So far the feedback is good. They just want more of them. Everybody wants more of them. So we'll put some more hopefully in the budget this year and get some more of those out there. We did lose one. We had the spring storm. I guess it was early June. The one down at the very end, Prospect. The water came up faster than we could react, and we lost one that got ripped and damaged, but the rest held up okay. We are seeing a lot more visitation down on the south side of the beach. I don't know if you're seeing it down at your way or not, but talking with the CATS guys, the umbrellas and beach chairs, it is really moving south. They've actually had to add an additional shack down there to handle the need down on the south side. Talked briefly on trash as an indicator of visitation. I really don't know that it tells us much. If you compare it from previous years, May was way below last year, but June was above last year. But if you add them together, they're about the same. So, I think it's so weather dependent on when people are here and if it's nice on a weekend versus nice during the week. Our guys on the boardwalk every day, July is very high, higher than last year. They say visitation or people on the boardwalk and the beach are way up from last year. I don't know if the hotels are seeing that or not, but certainly the people on the boardwalk and beach are up, and the amount of trash, the volume of trash they're getting is way up. We were very fortunate this year, unlike the chief, we filled all our positions, all of our seasonals and part-time positions. So we've been fully staffed, which has been a big help to us. We usually lose a bunch of them throughout the year or whatever, but Board of Commissioners have been and the city manager have been very good about allowing us to do some incentive things that have helped, we think, help them stay throughout the year, stick it out throughout the year, because they have to get to the end of the year before they get their bonus. So I think that helps. But because we were fully staffed, we kind of reoriented our shifts, because typically we would bag it in the evening and not pick it up off the beach, until first thing in the morning. But we realized there's so many people that are enjoying the morning on the beach. So now we get a late night sweep to at least get all the bagged stuff out. So it's nicer in the morning, we think, for the folks. And that seems to be working out real well. And we're only able to do that because we had the staff available to keep those guys around on the night shift. Recycling on the boardwalk, a little bit better than last year, but not very good at all. Probably 90-some% are contaminated with something. To us, it really doesn't matter whether it's a new trash, because it just provides another receptacle rather than somebody throwing it on the beach or on the boardwalk. So it's really not an impact to us. If it is contaminated, it just goes in a different carrier and goes into a different dumpster when they get back. So although it's certainly not getting any recoup on the investment for the recycling, but I think it's setting the right example that we're trying. And it also just, like I said, provides another receptacle for somebody to use that doesn't end up in the dune or on the boardwalk. So we're okay with it. Last thing for me, the Beach Patrol headquarters is out for bid, and we should open bids on August 10th. And hopefully we get good bids, and we'll get that under construction around the middle of September. Yeah. That's all I got. Got any questions?
What is the expected bid that you're going to receive on the Comfort Station headquarters? Do you have you put a expected number up yet?
So we had the engineer's estimate come in, I think was in the $4 million range. So our budget process is kind of weird in that we budgeted X amount for this FY and then the rest of it for next FY. So we'll see how they come in, next week, 2 weeks, I guess, and see what they do.
Kevin, on that subject, my impression, and I may be out of date, but my impression was the commissioners were pleased with the building as designed. There was some discussion about the parking or that sort of paved area in back of it on the other side of the boardwalk. I know the Wilmington-Baltimore Streetscape Committee had weighed in that they didn't really want a lot of paved area there. Has that issue been settled, or is that still a design that's subject to some changes as we get closer?
So they did a design for the turnaround at the bottom, with the kind of the feature in the middle with the pole, flagpole, and the like. And it's in the contract as an alternate bid item. We included that in case the hotels were able to get through the process quickly enough to start. We have no intention of doing that work until they're finished with the hotel, because we don't want to build that and have them just tear it up as they're going through demo and construction of theirs. So it was included just in case they were able to get through the process and start construction this fall as well. That certainly has not happened yet. So I think we're thinking that will probably not get done as part of this contract unless, the stars all align, they get their demo done, they're out of the way, and our guys are still working, a year and a half from now, maybe it happens.
Okay.
Maybe a little wishful thinking on our part, but yeah.
Stay positive.
Correct. Just in case. Steve?
Kevin, is the new lifeguard station a two-stage project, or is it all going to be done at once?
It's one contract. We have it kind of in phases because the intent is to get the first floor done, the restrooms back in service for next summer. So the intent would be they kind of, if they get it enclosed, they can work throughout the summer because they can work inside. But the key is getting the first floor done and in service so we can open the restrooms up. So we've been brainstorming what happens if they don't. So
And the guards are going to move down
later.
a block for the one season?
Well, they're going to probably stage, we'll get a trailer or something down either between the VIA and 1 Virginia. We got a little spot we could put it there, or stage them at Dovell. We're working through a couple options with the beach captain on where physically to kind of locate. Yeah, they'll have to have something up on the boardwalk area, but maybe they can have their operation at the beach and then put a temporary thing near the boardwalk for them. We're still working through those scenarios.
I've never had a chance to publicly thank you for all the stuff you do for the boardwalk, for the beach, all the things we do, and what a remarkable improvement that has been since you came on the scene, and the really good relationships with the workers that we've enjoyed these last years. And I haven't had a chance. And
Well,
I'm
as
not-
you know, I don't do much, right? I'm not out there picking up. I'm not doing any of that. But the guys work really hard doing it, and they're out in the 100-degree weather and pouring down rainstorms and all that. I will definitely pass that along to them.
Please
So
do that.
They work really hard.
And it's the guy at the top that sets the course. And I just want to say, I personally, from this committee, really appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, well, thank you.
I may not be able to say this again at this spot, so I'm saying it now.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right,
Thanks,
right.
Kevin. Let's talk about, I know that Jimmy and Patricia and Howard have been batting around the historical designation and pros and cons and steps, and start the discussion. Howard?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. I had a discussion a couple of weeks ago with Emily Whaley, who is her title is Cultural Preservation Specialist and Architectural Historian at the Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. If we were to seek designation for the boardwalk, or if any private owner were to seek designation for their own property as a historic place, and that would be to formally place it on the National Register of Historic Places. It's that office, the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs, that would sort of shepherd the project through and the application. When I spoke to her, she and I went through some of the requirements, and frankly, whether the boardwalk can be designated a historic place is an open question. And the reason it's an open question is because they say that in order to be designated, it has to have both historical significance and architectural integrity. And there's the rub, the architectural integrity. I am relatively sure that there's not a single board left on the boardwalk that is historical, which is a good thing. I mean, we've replaced it, we've kept it up to date, we've kept it solid, but what that does to the architectural integrity is unknown. And just quickly, the definition from the National Park Service, and by the way, they're the ones who maintain the National Register of Historic Places, says a historic building or structure must retain character-defining features associated with the proposed period of significance. Though nominated properties do not have to be in a restored state, they are required to possess character-defining exterior. And examples of those are windows, shutters, doors. Well, obviously, those things don't apply to the boardwalk. And so what we would want to do if we decide to move this forward is have Emily Whaley or one of her staff come out here, walk the boardwalk with us, sort of make a determination as to whether the fact that the current boardwalk is where the boardwalk has been for decades and decades and decades gives it both historical significance and architectural integrity. If they decide that that does probably make it eligible, then they would work with us. They would create what they call a schematic, or basically a timeline. They would walk us through the process. They would give us the basic questions that the National Park Service would ask about the history, about even the history of all of these renovations to the boardwalk. They would help us fill out the application, which would include photos and supporting information. That then goes to the Delaware Review Board for Historic Preservation. They meet anywhere from 2 to 4 times a year. Their next meeting's in October. After that, they'll probably meet in January. And then if they recommend it goes to the National Park Service, then either it goes or they bring it back to us and say, we want to propose this, but your application needs review or revision. It then goes to the National Park Service. They could send it back for more revisions or approve it. And then hopefully at that point, it gets approved. She described that process to me several times as research intensive. And I think that that's true, but I also think we have the research. I think that the Historical Society, I think the city records, somebody's going to have to dig into it, but I think it can be done. And so in terms of the boardwalk itself, that's where we stand. We also know that a good number of what we think of as historic structures on the boardwalk are about to be torn down for the 2 new hotels. So I really think that's not even a question. The one question I had in my own mind, and I don't know if anybody here can answer it, is whether the building, the Funland building is historic, or whether it's been rebuilt several times. Jimmy's nodding, and so I think that's the case.
Well, the 60s, but then they went through, when they went, it was majority of the wood exterior, and then they went with the concrete. I don't remember the year, but I do remember, after our season, they did a lot of work.
Yeah, that's what I recall too. And, again, I think it may be worthwhile to ask her or her staff to come down and, as I say, walk the boardwalk, maybe Jay, with you and the mayor, because the mayor was the chairman of this committee before you. He knows probably more about the renovations and the rebuilding of the boardwalk than anybody I can think of. And just kind of walk her through what's happened and get an initial reading as to whether she thinks we're even eligible for designation as on the National Register of Historic Places.
One suggestion, I agree with you on all of that. I think one suggestion may be, there's one person in town who's forgotten more than any of us will ever remember about, the boardwalk and, like whenever there have been storm damages, and it's former Mayor John Hughes. And he just knows it. He was Secretary of DENREC, so he dealt with, everything, when the boardwalk was destroyed again in '92 and everything else, but he's just been here forever and is a wealth of knowledge. And I agree with you with the Historical Society, but I think if we got, the right people to answer the right questions when they do come down, what do we have to lose?
Great suggestion. Yeah, he absolutely does
Yeah.
have that history.
Yeah.
And Paul Lovett has dug up a lot of history of the boardwalk too. And he'd be a great source too. My question is, why do we want to do that? Or why do we not want to do that? And does that enter into where we're headed? Because it's a complete, it's an evolving process. Kevin spends probably $200,000 a year just changing and maintaining and replacing things on the boardwalk. And if he sees something or if we see something that needs to be fixed or changed, we want to be able to do that. Does that limit us any? The person you've been talking to is a Delaware person.
Correct. She's with the Delaware Division of Historical and Cultural Affairs. Yeah, the short answer to the second half of that question, why would we not do it? There's really not a reason why we wouldn't do it. We are not limited to renovations or updates or repairs in any way, shape, or form. The only restriction I found of any sort was that, and again, it's vague federal language, if there is federal support for the project. So if federal funds go into the renovation of the boardwalk or something like that, then the designation as a historical place wouldn't put a restriction on it, but it's just one more hoop they would have to go through in order to provide the federal funding. It would not prevent us from doing anything. It might slow down the process, but honestly, I don't know how much funding we've ever gotten federally. I don't think there's much, if any.
Well, remember we got the what do we call it? Ready to put the spade in the ground money when
shovel-ready projects?
Yes, when Stan did the latest renovation.
Yeah.
We got money from the ready to work folks. We had it.
I thought we got money through Obama.
Yes,
during the Obama period.
And the mayor, Stan, had the plans ready to go. If you recall, we did a little bit of that. The Laurel, maybe, I can't remember, it was at the Robath Avenue to Laurel maybe, the year before, and we spent about $1 million on that. And then they went to the federal when that money came available and got the rest of it. Remember, we were on the TV as money that's being spent to stimulate the economy and the boardwalk and Rehoboth Beach.
Yeah.
But
Jay,
it worked really well.
specifically, it says, if federal monies are attached to the property, any changes to the property have to allow the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation to comment on the project. So as I say, it's one more step in getting the federal funding, but I don't think it's significant enough to really worry about.
Okay.
Why are we looking to do this through this program?
Okay, here's what happened. When this all started with Viewshed, and the programmatic agreement that the Department of the Interior signs with the Historical Society of each state, they recognize the significance of historic properties. You don't have to be, I'm just saying, we already know, you don't have to be designated officially, but you have to qualify for that. And if you have a historic property and they're going to build an 850-foot windmill out in front of you, they need to think about it, that they're changing your view, they're changing the historic viewshed. And we thought, well, maybe, I know that some cities in New Jersey, Atlantic City and Ventnor, we've talked about this, had been designated as an affected structure, affected place, that the wind turbine electric generating companies had to answer to the Department of the Interior of why they were
So we're
qualified to change their viewshed,
So we're doing it to prevent the wind farms.
to prevent the change of the idea was for New Jersey, if they could get enough people, and they got a bunch, if they could get folks to protest or to change, they may be able to have Department of Interior go back to the windmill companies and say, would you mind moving out a few more miles?
Right.
And all that. Well, that's turned out to be not possible.
Right. And I think the other relevant point is that, again, because the state office is so much in control of the process, since none of the wind farm contracts are with the state of Delaware, they're all with the state of Maryland, I don't know that that would even really have much effect.
yeah.
And other than that, I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, it's a point of civic pride. It may be something, I mean, I do know that there is a big movement in this country for historical tourism. And so if you're listed on the National Register of Historic Places, people begin to know it's there and they might come. I have not spoken about it to the chamber or to anybody else about whether they think it would increase tourism a bit or not at all. So it has very little effect other than, again, it sort of designates it, it increases awareness and that sort of thing, but these are all pretty intangible.
Yeah,
There's not really a
understand.
significant tangible benefit to it.
I understand that, but that's something that Rehoboth as a city, as an entity, could do themselves. Designate our boardwalk as a historic boardwalk. We don't need to be in this federal program. We could provide a plaque and put a plaque. I think the Henlopen is the oldest building on the boardwalk.
Well-
I think that was built in the 50s.
And to that point, there's a much
was a hotel
easier
before
process.
that.
You know, those blue historic markers,
yeah,
those
yeah.
are issued by the state archives.
Right.
And that's a very simple process. And I mean, that's a matter of simply sending them sort of a 1 or 2 page description of it. If they decide it's historical, you work with them on language and they put it up and it never goes beyond the state. It is not a federal process at all. So that's another alternative that may in and of itself be worth pursuing because it's a relatively simple matter.
Which is what we have at the end of Rehoboth Avenue right now, at the bandstand. Yeah.
But I think when we talked before, that the whole process was to give the city more control over the boardwalk. For example, when we discussed the cell towers, well, if the boardwalk was historical, had a historical designation, then we'd have a little bit more
Input.
Input, thank you, input, excellent word, with Verizon or whomever on the appearance, for example, or the placement, or how many. So that was another consideration. It wasn't just the windmills.
Yeah, and there was a lot of other, I mean, when we were working with, you know, the different type of the light poles that we were gonna put out there, and how the, you know, as Patricia said, you know, if they were gonna start hanging all of these cell tower things. And then we were talking about, you know, the different, you know, the lights with the, you know, the field of vision and everything else like that. You know, it could give us a little bit more control of, you know, what we could do. So, I mean, there were a lot of factors that, you know, that we all discussed committee-wise, and, you know, tried to figure out, okay, you know, somebody can come in and just really overrule us, you know, after we do all this work. And it just could be a step that we could take, you know, to really help the city.
It's that important piece in the jigsaw.
Exactly.
You can't complete the jigsaw because they've got that piece.
Exactly. And I think it's, you know, to go through the exercise of finding out exactly, you know, what we have to do to get this designation. You know, I don't know. We could go through the whole process and they said, well, we could do it, but. And that could be a but that, you know, we would just say, no, you know, thank you for your time, but at least we went through the exercise to the best of our ability, you know, to do this. And it may wind up, we do get it done. And, you know, on the other hand, unfortunately, I hope, you know, we do get it done, but we may not. And then we could kind of go where the city and could work with the state and have the plaque, you know, designate, like a lot of the schools and everything else have too. But I think it's a really good exercise. I mean, I've learned, I think we've all learned more than, you know, we've ever realized how much it takes to, you know, do this and go through the process and the approvals and, you know, what are the pros, what are the cons. I think it's a really good exercise. I think, you know, if the committee agrees, I mean, we could just continue the process, you know, and just find out what we need. I think we have the resources, you know, within the community, you know, the residents of Rehoboth, as well as the museum, as well as the city archives and, you know, everything else.
Yeah, I think once the decision's made, that the city wants to go forward, people will be coming out of the woodwork with information and history and, you know, I think, but it just needs to be, the decision needs to be made. Do we want to go forward? And then a committee formed to, you know, bring all that information together. One other benefit I read is that potentially if we did have the historical designation, that grant money would be a little bit easier to obtain for various things in the city. So that's a bonus.
And Jimmy, what I would say is the state archive process for the blue historical marker is independent of this. I think if we're going to do it, the research we do is going to apply to both. So let's move them both together. Yeah, let's do them at the same time.
Right, and I think, and again, I mean, tying to what, you know, Patricia said, and I think this is one thing, you know, I think we're trying as a committee, you know, we want, you know, the community, you know, the people who love Rehoboth to be involved with everything that we do. We've seen it through streetscapes. We've seen it through, you know, a majority of things that other committees do throughout the year. And I think this is something, you know, that our committee can, you know, really throw out there and just let people know, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, here's information that we're looking for. You know, do you have any photos? Do you have any history? Do you have any of this stuff? And I think it would just be really good for the city as a whole, you know, to get all of these pictures. I mean, I'm sure each of us have at least 20 pictures that we've taken over the years on the boardwalk. I mean, I think it could be, you know, something that could really grow legs and, you know, go forward.
What's the thought of the boardwalk and the beach committee? Do we want to spend some time on this? Do we want to go through these procedures? Do we want to get back with the state folks and say, what should we be doing step by step to get whatever level we decide we want. I agree with everybody else. National Historic Park Service is probably. There were a lot of structures that were affected by the windmills in New Jersey, and none of them had any influence at all on the approval of their COP permit. What did have tons of influence, and in my opinion is just wild, was the fact that there might be Indian or some kind of a tribal relic in the bottom of the ocean where these people are driving piles and digging ditches and everything and to run their cable. That was an incredible influence.
Jay, let me ask this question. And again, it's a process question. If we were to recommend this, do we recommend it back to the mayor and commissioners? Do you go talk to the mayor about who moves this forward? I mean, what's the best process? I mean, I see everybody sort of nodding around the table that we want to move forward and look into this, but what do we, I'm happy to make a resolution. I'm just not sure what we're resolving.
Yeah, maybe nothing. I mean, maybe it's not resolution time. We can do a consensus or something. But as you recall, the mayor has this set of stipulations that he wants fulfilled before we submit a report. It's background, cause, effect, pros, cons, stuff, which I'll do if we want to do that. And maybe we do want to do that. If we think it's crazy the things that come in that have influence when you just don't realize it. It's what somebody else might think. Turns out that the military's radar is the big problem now. And of course, the whales that are dying on the shore, which have an overly too much impact, because whales have been breaching the shore for a long time.
Then let me propose this, and you can nod or you can shoot it down.
Okay.
Let me propose that we pass a resolution to empower you as chairman of this committee to talk to the mayor, expressing our interest in pursuing both State Archive and National Register of Historic Places designation for the Boardwalk. Just ask you to have a discussion with him about how this is best pursued. Is it through this committee? Is it through the mayor and commissioners? Is it through staff? Is it through the Historical Society? And then come back to us in some way, shape, or form if we need to do anything else, or if the mayor and commissioners take it and run from there. But I think what we want to do is be on the record that we're interested in those two designations and ask you to discuss it with the mayor.
Okay. He will want the report that I just described. I want to know if we want to do it or not.
I'm willing to help you on that.
Yeah, of course.
We want to seek the next step?
Well, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the only way that we're going to be able to answer the mayor and the commissioner's questions is to take it to the next steps by meeting with the state and everything else. Because if I heard you correctly, you said that, you know, the mayor and commissioners are going to want to know, here are all the pros, here are all the cons and everything else. At this time, we don't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, not 100%. And I think if we go through the process of, you know, meeting with the people, and, you know, actually going through it, we, meaning this committee, can actually have a clear report that we can just hand them rather than assumptions. It'll be the facts.
But the first thing I need to do as Howard is to informally get with the mayor and say, hey, you think this would go anywhere if we went forward?
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest with you, Jay, I mean, I think it's well worth doing, but the mayor may say, look, the city doesn't really have a role here. Give it to the Historical Society and we'll work with them, but they're gonna have to push it forward. Or he may say, no, let's make this an official action of the city. So I just don't know where the preference is.
And I'll find out when I talk to him. I think I have a consensus among everyone that I should talk to him.
Yes.
Okay.
And I also think Howard's suggestion of having Emily, was it Whaley?
Yes.
Come next month, or come to the next meeting and speak would be very helpful.
Okay.
Howard, do we know exactly when the boardwalk was officially opened?
I have to look it up. For some reason, the year 1860. For some reason, the year 1862 sticks in my mind, but that may not be right. Let me just check and see what I've got.
So it is over 100 years old then?
I'm home.
Yeah.
I had
Oh,
read
yeah.
somewhere where in the beginning, they just threw down some
Thanks.
planks.
First boardwalk in Rehoboth Beach was constructed in 1873.
And that was the year they had the auction. So that was a bongo
That's when the
beginning.
city incorporated or something, wasn't
No,
it?
that was 91 when the city went to a incorporated leadership like we have now. But the city was here and functioning
Well, aren't we
since
just coming up
73.
on our 150th anniversary?
We just passed it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll talk to the mayor, say, hey, here's what we're thinking we'd like to do. Informally talk about the advantages and disadvantages. And there's a good chance that he may be reporting to himself. So it'll depend on what his thoughts are along those lines. But that's what I'll take forward.
Great.
Now, I have this really nice presentation that I didn't bring. The mayor wants to know what we think, as this is a recurring question, but things change all the time, too, about wind farms. And I had a long discussion, not a long discussion, but had a discussion yesterday with the city manager and the director of public works. And I think the opinion is that viewshed is probably not going to count much when we talk about windmills, wind farms, and wind turbines. And I think I sent some editorial things out to folks and just for a background information thing. But I've been doing a little bit of research on that, and the programmatic agreement that they have been worrying about, the Department of the Interior against the state historical societies, has been that when they were digging in as I said a minute ago, it's all been digging in the bottom of the ocean, which is a continental shelf that's been covered with water for probably 12,000 years. So 12,000 years ago, there weren't too many folks, indigenous people in this area, if any. And to assume that they may have graves or burial grounds or any kind of archaeological significant structures or places underneath the water is really, really slim. However, the Department of Interior decided that they would go ahead and let the contractors start building wind turbine bases and all that. And if they find something, they don't have to shut the program down. They just have to take advantage of find all the information they can and go forward. Before that, when they found a significant place, artifact, object, they had to stop what they were doing and run that to ground. So the new programmatic agreement that they just signed is merely a remedy for the expense of stopping construction on these windmills. There's a lot of push from the White House, a lot of push from the top branches of government to build those windmills. And that's what's happening. Now, the problem is we talked about, and then I found some information on that, is that the cost is just skyrocketing. Atlantic Shores, which, okay, straight out from us is the bottom of Cape May, south of Cape May. Straight out from us is where the skipjack's gonna go, and that's 12 and a half miles. And then above the skipjack off Atlantic's, well, right above the skipjack is GSOE, which is Garden State Offshore Enterprises. And they have the one that's right above Skipjack, attached to the north of Skipjack. And then on above that is the one that I think I had sent about Ocean Wind, is above that. And they're putting in 200 windmills. And they had originally, and I looked up that fellow's credentials that wrote that editorial. And the company, which is owned by Ørsted, which is the same people that own Skipjack, said that they weren't going to go forward with Atlantic Shores, which is the two plots that are just north of Ocean Wind, because they couldn't make the money come out, and they were pulling off the job. And the state of New Jersey told them that they would give them $2 billion and not shut the project down. Now, the state of New Jersey is getting their money from the ratepayers. So they're just going to pass that on to the people buying electricity. And this fellow that wrote this article did some further research, and he discovered that it wasn't just $2 billion, that it was going to cost them about $6 billion to finish those 200 wind turbines, which just puts that out of range. I don't know where they're going to get the money. And I did a calculation on Skipjack, which is out off of us, and they're going to end up spending about a little bit less than $2 billion on the 98 wind turbines that Chris has said that they are. And that's going to be way more. If you recall, when Charlie was in here talking to us, he said that they had a contract and they couldn't go above that contract, so that was guaranteed. Well, I think that was like at 2.5 cents a kilowatt, which was what I think they agreed to. I'm paying, in my house on Prospect Street, I'm paying about 4 cents for a kilowatt, and we all are about the same. And in order to come out even, just come out even, not making a profit or anything, these wind farms are going to have to charge 8 cents a kilowatt hour. And I just picked that up off the Department of Energy website this morning to come out on their expenses and not even make a profit. So the 2.5 cents, which is what the contract was for, it's just not going to be possible to do that. So that may be why they're holding off. That may be what. I don't know that Maryland will give Skipjack $300 billion or whatever it is. They might. But Maryland also has a contract with U.S. Wind, which is off Ocean City coast. And they're going to have the same problems that Skipjack has here and Ørsted has up further north. So I think it's going to be a while before all this gets settled. I don't know whether...
All the articles, like you said, I mean, a lot of the things, that we've all read are saying that, bringing up, money's money. You can throw so much money at something, but you're going to want a return, and stockholders are going to want, their dividends and their return on their investments and everything else. And I think I've watched, as we all have on YouTube, when there's, the meetings with a lot of the wind farm salesmen, for lack of better words, and when they're really pressed, tell us how you're going to do this. They kind of fall back on, well, this is how it's going to work. And then, people who are a lot smarter than all of us will really hound them saying, well, here's everything that you've said. Here's what you said the kilowatt hour is going to be. How are you going to do this? There's no way you can even turn the switch on. You're just going to lose so much money. Who's going to wind up paying that? And it always winds back, the ratepayer.
To the consumer.
Right. And they're like, well, why am I going to change what I have now that's going to be, at least based on your calculations, at half? Why am I going to agree to go with you? So, I mean, I'm not an expert on it by any way, shape, or form, but, I think it's all going to have to come down to money and what are people going to pay. And I agree with you, Jay. I think this thing's just going to, just be so cost prohibitive. And then if it does go forward, I think, what we're reading about things that have happened in Europe and other countries who've done this, the life cycle of them aren't that long. And the maintenance issues of them are, really labor intensive. And they're not as clean as, we're being led to believe. So I think that I think with anything new, they're going to have to really figure out how are we going to do this. So I agree. I think it's going to be a while if it is able to move forward.
The guy that we read in that editorial looked at websites which put up by the government. I think it was called the Information Agency or something, that was $6,000 a kilowatt for offshore wind constructions. And I went and looked back and tried to find a more complete answer. And if you go on the Department of Energy's renewable energy website, you'll see that they have about $4,000, their estimates on constructions for 1 kilowatt of wind power, which puts skipjack's wind turbines at about $29 million each, if to erect them out off our coast. But just the servicing and construction traffic, the government has decided that we need to revamp ports so these people can have decent ports to haul their huge equipment in and out of and do servicing. And our government has suggested that New London, Connecticut needs a renovation of their port for $300 million. Brooklyn needs $217 million to jazz up their port. New Bedford needs $234 million to renovate their port. And here's the big one. They're going to build a new one for $540 million. It is going to be located at the mouth of the Delaware Bay, which is right off our beach out here. I don't know how they're going to do that or where they're going to do it, but that's what they've recommended, or how it's going to be financed. I think our future is going to look for real heavy government subsidies if we're going to get wind power. I looked up the cost of, as I said a minute ago, we're paying 4 cents a kilowatt hour. I looked up it's called the levelized cost of energy for land-based windmills, and they are actually cheaper than we are. They're 3.7 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's doable. It's doable. But it's going to take a lot of seed money to get it going. And the entire West Coast of the United States has no shelf. So they can't use land anchored. The water's too deep to anchor their windmills. So they got to use floating windmills. Floating windmills, land-based windmills, like we're going to have, the levelized cost of energy is about 8.5 cents a kilowatt hour, which is a little bit more than twice what we're paying. But once you get out where they're floating, the cost to build that is 13.2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is 3 times what we're paying. So there's some hang-ups, you know. I'm sure it'll happen, but it's not going to be a quick, smooth 50 gigawatts by 2030 that we'll have. And that's just an update. They still haven't okayed the cost, the construction plans for Skipjack, but they have okayed the construction plans for Southwind, which is the one that faced the places we were talking about. Ventnor City, the hotels, condos, the historic houses. They okayed their cost, their construction and operating plan. But instead of letting them go straight into the park in Atlantic City where they were going to go, they're making them go all the way up north to a place called Oyster Bay. And I had those pictures in my presentation, which is going to significantly raise the price of their installation. So we may not have to worry about this for a little bit. I don't know. But I also think that viewshed is not even going to be as considered as a problem. They'll get those windmills up as cheaply as they can because it's going to be government subsidy as quickly as they can because they want to come online as fast as they can. And we still have billions of dollars in transmission lines that have to be built. They're talking about building a big transmission line down the coast so that all these windmill farms can hook into transmission, and that is going to be incredibly expensive. So that's my report right now.
So Jay, given what we've just discussed, is there a state of Delaware position on wind power? Has the state taken any sort of position whatsoever?
No, I think we are helping as much as we can.
Yeah.
As much as we can.
Yeah, because it seems to me that we've gone around this a couple of times. I think we're looking at the available information. The available information
right.
is changing almost monthly. I think we stay on top of it, but I don't know that the city has any official action or the state has any official action at this point because everybody's watching the same dynamics at this point.
And every time the interest rate goes up 0.25%, these guys have to go find new investors. I think our position hasn't changed. We think it's great. We need renewable energy. We need the benefits of super clean energy. We worry about viewshed is probably going to be not considered, and all we do is wait and see when they start. And right now, I don't know what they're going to hook up to when they bring them on shore, and how much it's going to cost them to build them. I just don't know. But there is a tremendous push because wind energy is so attractive.
I think I read that the national grid couldn't even take all this additional kilowatts. It would fail.
We can't charge 3 Teslas in a block at night because we don't have the grid. We can't bring the power in. I don't know where they're getting the power out along the well, they're underneath they're
Pylons.
hooked up to the huge sources of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. but those things really take power. And they're talking about trucks. They're talking, all the major car companies are coming out with SUVs. They're gonna sell like hotcakes. Charging them is gonna be something else. I just don't know how we're gonna do it. We talked about the programmatic agreement. We talked about the construction and operating plans for South Wind 1. It's been approved with all of the exceptions for tribal artifacts that I talked about. And the COP doesn't talk about money, but Southwind is gonna have to come back to the state of New Jersey and ask for more money. I just don't know. Let's talk for a minute about future items. We're gonna continue talking about historical significance.
Jay, I got the sense from what Kevin Williams said today and from previous discussions with commissioners have come to the conclusion that the recycling on the boardwalk just isn't working. Do you know, I mean, is there a result of that discussion? Do you think the city's going to abandon that program?
No.
Do you think we're just going to leave it and
No,
hope
it
for the
will
best?
not be abandoned.
Okay.
Kevin wants to continue setting an example. And that's laudable.
Okay. Yeah.
And he kind of thinks that, get a little more, I don't know. You just heard him say someone may want to put a can in a special.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna stay. Even though we
Say it
have,
was a 90% contamination. I mean, that's huge.
it's incredible.
But it's
It's wasted money.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, it's unfortunate, but, you know, I see, you know, like if I walk in downtown Wilmington and, you know, along the riverfront or any place that, you know, where they have, you know, the special cans, you know, I'm sorry, the special containers that you can throw like a soda can or a water bottle in. I mean, somebody's just always throws garbage in it. You know, it's unfortunate, but I think it's just the way things are.
Well, and unfortunately, even the home recycling, people put their stuff out for recycling, and I know statistics say something like 80% of that gets thrown back into the landfill because
Yeah.
it's contaminated.
I don't know, I just don't know how that company can continue to come out on their, Blue Hen, come out on their money. Because our driver gets out a lot to pick up boxes. And as you said, it all goes, hell, they may not even be dumping it in the recycling. They may just be taking it straight to landfill.
So bottom line for us as a committee and for the city, it's kind of steady as she goes.
Yeah.
Keep it going. Okay.
Now, if I was a commissioner, I would say, we need to talk about risk, about reward, about cost. What's the downside to getting rid of this recycling? Because it's just, how much is it costing us?
One key thing, I mean, I think it's funny how people now follow all, like social media, the trends that you can put out and things like that. And I think almost, not doing it for this summer, but I think if the city of Rehoboth were to put something out as like a year in review, you know, here's how many beach visitors we had,
Yeah.
here's how many, and, you know, kind of throw that, you know, if you tell the story in a really good way, it might make people a little bit more self-conscious about, well, I didn't realize that or anything else. You know, it may be something good to put out.
It's hard to know. Do you want that put out to the public that we have a recycling program that's not working very well because of contamination and we need to rethink it? Maybe I misunderstood your.
Well, no, I mean,
thrust.
I would put out, you know, that of the, you know, well, yeah, you would have to kind of put in there that, you
You
know.
could turn it around and say, we've had a 10% success rate, but, you know,
Exactly.
that's what glass is half full, but
Right.
still, I think people should know, because then they'd make more of an effort.
Yeah.
If they
and I
knew it was
think that's-
90% contamination, they'd think twice before they threw something away, hopefully.
We might say, we're having contamination and here's how much it's costing us.
Right.
We need to think more about it.
And just have the facts on like the city's social media outlets, the city's website and things like that. I think if it's, because as I remember, years ago, before we had the recycling on the boardwalk, we would get the request, hey, why aren't you putting recycling on the boardwalk?
Right.
And now it's kind of like we're continuing with that story and just saying, I like what you said, that we have a 10% success rate with it. And, we'll continue with it, but we need your help. Yeah.
Do we expect results?
I think if you tell them,
Yeah.
the more you talk about something, the more people will recognize it. I think a lot of it is, like when Chief said, the issues that we're having with dogs on the beach and the boardwalk and things like that. I mean, I think it was 2 weeks ago, I was just out for my nightly walk on the boardwalk and everything. And, one of the cadets or interns, just simply walked up to these people and said, I'm very sorry, no dogs are allowed on the boardwalk during these months and everything else. And they kind of copped attitude with them. And just another citizen was walking by and said, well, he's absolutely right. If you just turn the way they were facing going south, they said, well, if you just look over to your left, there's a clear sign that says that. And I think it's, people are just oblivious. They don't read signs, they don't read anything. And, just by saying, hey, by the way, I think that's kind of how you get it.
I can't remember if I told you this story or not. Stop me if I can, if I did.
I think you're getting off topic.
We're in the
This-
weeds.
You can just run me out of here anytime you want.
I have to leave at 11 o'clock. I have another meeting I have to.
Well, that's so we are coming down to D, future agendas, and we're talking about historical significance and recycling so far on the future agenda. But I got to tell the story, Ann. Was walking about a week ago with a lady and her daughter. Came onto the boardwalk with a dog. Came right by the sign that's at the end of Prospect Street. And I said, ma'am, there are no dogs on the boardwalk allowed in the summertime or on the beach. And the 11-year-old girl said, they don't enforce that. You can go ahead and go. I said, good gravy.
Yep.
It's a fact.
It's
It's a fact.
In terms of new agenda items, I didn't hear Kevin talk about the 5G antennas on the boardwalk. Is there any update?
no updates. The last I checked with Kevin, he said there have been no new, something he did say. He said there have been no new applications in, but we are using that company, who are they, ECG or EGC, the consultant that we used for the pole designs, and they're operating a portal. So every 5G application we get has to go through that portal. And they are a lot more definitive and restrictive than we were when we took any application that came back 3 or 4 years ago. So I think that's an advantage that we have. I don't know how much we're paying them to run that portal, but probably as inexpensive as what we would do if we had to man it and have people do the applications.
Jay, let me ask you and Ann both, do we have a date set for our next meeting?
It's 29 September, and I have not officially sent because whoever takes over may want to have it monthly. I know Stan did in the past, but he used to skip sometimes in the summer, as I recall.
Then let me
makes sense.
suggest that we sort of do what we're doing, keep these topics in mind. But I think, sort of to Jimmy's point, by the end of the year, we may have a clearer view as to,
Oh, by
you know,
far.
everything. Whether recycling is working, whether people are complying with the dogs and the tents and all that. So, I mean, we got a very good update now, but again, we've got the most intense period of the season to go.
Yeah, this is,
You know, let's see if we can't, and maybe it's the September meeting, maybe it's an October meeting by the time we have all the statistics. But let's ask for
We'll
that
know.
kind of update again. And then we may see that there are certain topics that we need to address as a committee at that point.
Yep.
And there may be some that, you know, like recycling, it may just be a done deal. We know where we are and we'll just keep watching it. It's kind of like
Yep.
wind power.
yep. So when I have my informal conversation with the mayor, we'll talk about all that stuff. Do you remember the discussion we had about, or the Steve sent an email that had the situation where falcons were being used to discourage seagulls from dumping fresh poop in the ocean? I went and checked up on that. They did, I think we saw there was $150,000 a year they used to pay this falconer.
Yeah.
So I was talking with Kevin yesterday about that. Said, well, what advantage would it be to do that on our boardwalk?
Didn't we do that one year? I distinctly remember that there was an article in the Gazette about this hawk being up on top of the dolly sign. I just don't remember, maybe 4 years
There
ago?
was one. There was one that sat on top of the dolly sign, and there was an eagle that sat on the top of that telephone pole on Hickman.
They weren't hired, they weren't brought in.
They were not,
Just came in.
they were, yes, they were
okay.
just
It
deterred.
volunteers.
We thought it'd be a nice place to hang out for the summer.
So I talked to Kevin, and we said, when one of those falcons catches a seagull, it's not a pretty picture. And you'd hate to see little kids walking down the boardwalk and this falcon takes this seagull down and
Yeah, I also think 150,000 to save a couple French fries is a lot of money. You know, that's kind of
well,
crazy.
what it's saving is in Terex. But you're right, it is. It's just fun to talk about.
Well, the way I heard the story was the guy doesn't even have the bird fly. He just has it on his shoulder and walks up and down the boardwalks.
I think that's probably possible. And they see that falcon. that
It's just the
seagull.
odor of the falcon or something. They can sense that they know there's a predator in the area.
I'll call my friend who's a falconer and invite him down. He and his family down, let him walk up and down the boardwalk, and let's see if it works for free.
Okay,
My
let's
son's
get
a
Ann out of
licensed
here.
falconer.
Well, Jay, before
okay.
we adjourn, again, will presume to speak for everybody, to say thank you. You've been a great chairman. You've kept us on some really important topics. I think we've had good discussions. I hope that the fact that you're leaving the commission doesn't mean that you're going to just not be involved with this committee at all. I hope you'll stay involved and keep us on track with whoever the new chairman is. But thank you for a great job.
I'll
You've really
second
done a
that.
great job. Thank you.
I will continue to attend the meetings. I'll also be sitting out there.
Great.
But if you recall from before, I always had voice. Stan would always let me talk. I'd say anything I pleased. So it's just a lot of paperwork I'm missing out on. That's about
I know you hate missing that.
and I hate that. If there are no other discussion, no other items, nothing more to add, I will declare this in my last meeting adjourned. I'll send the meeting's over. I'll send the notice to Ann for the 29th. And whoever it is can either add meetings or not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Jay.
you guys are outstanding. You just don't know how great it is.